let's start. First of all, good morning, because I think it is currently 11 a.m. around at your time zone at in Germany. At my place, it's currently good afternoon. So if people are from India, good afternoon to y'all. So first of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Sanglap Mridha, and I'm from India. Currently, I'm working as a software engineer at Altor Smart Mobility. And apart from that, during the previous session, I was actually the GDSC lead of my university, like the Google Developer Students Club lead. So I have been an active member of communities of Google developer communities for a long time, I would say. And this is the first time I'm talking at DevFest Allen. So thanks to the core team for allowing me to give a speech on this grand event. So let us jump into the topic right away. Okay. So today we will be talking about accessibility for all, building inclusive web applications. So first of all, let us understand that what actually accessibility means. So I would like to start my topic by asking you all a question. Have you ever tried using a website using only your keyboard like this guy out here? Or maybe not like this in your own way, but have you ever tried to use only your keyboard to navigate throughout a website? I believe no, because we have our trackpads, we have our mouses, but in some situations you might be needing it. So we will be talking about this in the later half of the session. First, let's understand that why accessibility really matters to people. Okay. So first of all, some statistics you can say that 1 billion people actually live with disabilities, which is 15% of the total world's population. And that is a massive number. And like definitely 1 billion people have disabilities, and these disabilities might be different. They might be motor disabilities, they might be having some hearing disability or anything. But a lot of people among this number actually struggle to use the web. Okay, so first let's understand that accessibility is actually not only for a disabled person. For example, as you can see here, that accessibility actually benefits everyone. For example, you're watching your favorite series, okay, in your phone or maybe in your laptop, and there is a lot of noise going around in your background. So at that moment, you use the captions to understand what the characters are saying, right? Or even like if you're watching something that is in a different language, you're maybe like I am from India and I'm watching something in French or maybe in German, so I will be using the captions in English to understand what the characters or the protagonist is saying, right? So and also in a lot of countries like USA and in some countries in Europe also, they actually have strict compliance policies for websites and web apps to actually have a provision for web accessibility. In most of the countries it is still not there, but yes, it is definitely there in some countries. So if you I would suggest you all to maybe after the session go and search that what are the legal compliances you have. You can just go and search it Google, as our granny has said. Okay. So moving on, let us understand now what exactly is web accessibility. We understood that accessibility is not limited to people with disabilities. Everybody needs accessibility at some point or other. But what exactly is web accessibility? So if I talk about web accessibility, like a plain definition at its core, it will be like making the web accessible for everybody, including people who are disabled. Like this will be the definition. But okay, you would say that Sanglap, we understood that making the web accessible for everyone so that everybody can use the web. But how can I do that? That's the question, right? So first of all, making a web content usable for people with disabilities, that I already said. And now, what kind of disabilities? Like there are people who have some vision impairments, maybe they are partially blind or maybe completely blind. So making your web in such a way, definitely you like a blind person will not be able to see your website. But nowadays people are using screen readers. Like not nowadays, it's been there for a long time, but they actually use screen readers. So what we can do is we can make our websites in such a way that they are able to understand what the website is conveying. Okay, and now how to like make your website like I would say useful for screen readers and magnifiers, we will be talking in this session. Okay, so first of all, let's understand the guidelines a bit. I would not deep dive into the guidelines because like then it will be a like a very theoretical thing. But yes, definitely if you want to make your website accessible for everybody, you need to understand a lot of theories, because there are a lot of principles which you need to follow. There are a lot of guidelines which you need to follow to actually make your website accessible for all. Okay, so there is a guideline named Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, which is also called as WCAG, and it basically has four key principles. Okay, and that's actually referred as POUR principle. Okay, like POUR principle. So what does the word pour gives you the idea? Like something like pouring a hot coffee at the starting of the day, right? But that's not the case. That's not the POUR principle. The POUR principle basically stands for perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. Now let's understand what does this four things actually mean. Okay, so first coming to perceivable. So perceivable actually means that all users should perceive content. Like for example, as I have told you that a blind person is using a website using a screen reader. Okay, so I am pretty much sure you people know about alt text, and a lot of people are using alt text like in images. When you use an image tag in your HTML, you actually have one like src, which is the source, and an alt. So what is this alt? Usually we tend to miss out the alt, or maybe we write something like image. Like I personally have done this a lot of times, that when I'm in a hurry, I maybe I imported an image, I have used that and then kept the alt text as image, or even I sometimes I have written img also. But that's actually wrong, because when a screen reading software goes through your website and it goes to the part of the image, it actually reads out the alt text, because reading software cannot understand what image you're showing, right? So the alt text comes into play at that moment of time. So if you're showing maybe one bike, so you should write that a bike of maybe white color or black color or something like that. The alt text should be revealing what the picture is. Then only the person with disability will understand what picture you're trying to show. Okay, moving on to operable. Now what is operable? So now coming back to the first question that I asked, that have you ever tried using a website with your keyboard? Maybe no, but when you're making your website, you should think about a situation where maybe a person is unable to use the mouse. He or she has only access of a keyboard, or maybe no trackpad is also there. Then how he or she is gonna use your website, right? They won't be able to do it. So you should use those keyboard navigation in your website. We will be talking about keyboard navigation later on in this like in this session itself. Now coming to understandable. Now you might make a website, it might be beautiful, but the contents and stuffs that you wrote is like people are unable to understand those. Then what's the point, right? Your website should like convey something. Because for example, you are making a portfolio website for a company maybe, so that the company may be a service based company who have done a lot of projects, a lot of clients. So your website should convey that message to the person who is visiting that, right? So the content should be readable, it should be logical, and everything should be clear. Now moving on to robust. Now what is robust? So first thing comes the first point that comes to my mind when I hear the term robust, that if a person opens the website from his or her phone, or maybe in a laptop, or maybe in a TV, the website should look fine. Like the website should be responsive. This is the first step of making a robust website or web application. Number two is that your website or web application should be compatible with assistive technologies. Okay, so these are the four main principles, I would say the core principles that you should always keep your mind if you want to make a accessible web application. Okay, so moving on, Let's talk about some common accessibility issues that I have seen in multiple codes, like multiple website codes, multiple web application codes. Like when I started doing web development, I mostly worked in web applications, and during that time, I actually didn't gave so much attention to web accessibility. But as I grew in my career, as I moved to like making better websites, making better web applications, I understood that this is actually very much important. So now let's talk about the uh, common accessibility issues. Okay. So the first one is the missing alt text that I have said, that a lot of people actually miss out. I have seen a lot of senior people also miss this out, because mostly people say that my website is like no disabled person is going to use my website. But this is a very wrong approach. When you are like, if you are a developer, you are solving a problem, you are making a product, so you should never say something like that my website is targeting a certain amount of people and not all. This is a wrong approach, so you should definitely use a alt text. Now the second one is poor color contrast. Like this is very much common. If you go to a lot of websites, you will see that you cannot read the writings properly because of the poor color contrast. So this is a very common mistake that everybody makes. And now keyboard traps. Like as I have told you, the interactive features of the keyboard, this like lacks in a lot of place. For example, I have a link in my website. Okay, a hyperlink is there. You need to click that to open a new page. Okay, but I don't have a mouse. Then what should I do? So you should handle those situations also when you're making a web app or website. Now comes the unlabeled forms. I have seen this a lot, that people like nowadays it's kind of a design convention also, that people usually use the placeholder. Only the placeholder is shown, like maybe name, and you when you start writing, the placeholder disappears and nothing is there. But if you think like that, suppose somebody wrote two words and then left, and another person comes and sees that he has written two words, then what should he understand? Like that is an unlabeled form. So this is a very wrong approach. Currently in material design, you would see that the name thing, the label thing shows in the placeholder place, but as you go on typing, it comes up. So that is a good practice. Your form should always have a label. Like you might not stick to the conventional way of label and text box. You can do with like you can explore material design or anything else, any design you can go with, but it should have a label. Okay. Now the most important thing, that non-semantic HTML, like using divs. Yeah, in some places you definitely need to use divs. Divs are basically containers. If you are from Flutter, then they are containers in web. But avoid using divs, I would say. Use div as much less as you can, because what divs basically don't provide is, they don't provide the information of what they are. When a screen reading software or any assistive technology like goes through a div, they don't understand what actually it is. Like for example, if you use a h1 tag, they will understand that this is a heading. Okay, but if they go to a p tag, they will understand this is a paragraph. But if they go to a div, what they will understand, it can be anything. It can be like a button. It can be like, you can use div in many ways. Like you can use div and give a on click attribute to it and use it as a button, but don't do that. If you want to use a button, use the button tag. That's the right way. We will be talking about, like, this is a type of div code. You can see I have captured it from the web itself. So don't do that. Use proper semantic HTML. This is very much important. Okay, so we understand the 1 2 3 4 5 common accessibility issues. There are definitely more, but these five are very very common. Like they are like this five common accessibility issue you will find in most of the applications. And these are very common mistakes. Like everybody has done this. Even if today you might be making good web apps, like accessible web apps, but you have surely made these five mistakes before. Like Okay, so moving on, we have the semantic HTML, the foundation of accessibility. As I said, that semantic HTML is very, very important. Okay, for example, here I have just mentioned you that using label and input, you can definitely explore it with the material design I have said. But if you are making a form, use the label tag and the input tag. Like this is the convention you should always follow, because if a assistive technology is going through your form, it will understand that this is the label and this is the input. Okay, great. And here also you can see that I have mentioned the for example, the label is for the email, so I have mentioned the for attribute. Less percentage of people actually use the for attribute, but it's something you should definitely use. Then in the input field you can see type. So mention these things, it will help the assistive technology to understand more. Now, why should we use semantic HTML? I am telling that semantic HTML is good, and I have given some examples also, but let's understand this more, I would say, in more depth. Okay, so first of all, it improves accessibility. Like I have told you that screen readers and assistive technologies can understand and interpret them easily. And like, for example, you can see I have written the nav tag. For example, you are making a navigator section or maybe a nav bar, so use the nav tag. Like that's a proper way of writing your HTML code. Then coming to the enhanced SEO. And now what's SEO? SEO is basically search engine optimization. So when you're making a website, this is very important. If you're making something like a B2C website or maybe a portfolio website, which requires a lot of SEO. So at those moments, using semantic HTML is very much important. If you're making an internal tool or something like that, maybe where SEO doesn't matter, then that's a different thing. But it's always a good practice to use semantic HTML, because like if you make this a habit of using semantic HTML, you will be doing it in your every application. So try to make it, like using the article tag. You can see like these are the tags people might sometimes skip, like they just use div or anything like that. They skip this article tag, nav tag is still you can see, but article tag is something people actually don't care about much. Then comes better code maintainability. So if a person writes the semantic element, so if another person comes and checks that code or sees that code, he or she will be understanding that what is this code about. Like if they see a section tag or a side tag, they will have a proper understanding of what this person actually wanted to make. Okay, it like helps in a lot of debugging, like when you're pair programming and doing some debugging that the code is written by someone else. So this actually very much helps. Okay, now let's talk about the accessible rich internet applications, or the ARIA. Okay, so what is this ARIA? So ARIA are basically some HTML attributes, you can say. For example, here you can see I have used the div tag and I have given a role as alert, that form submitted successfully. So I have made this presentation mostly using the like the form example, because form is something that people sometimes use the proper form tag, the label tag, the input tag, and people sometimes totally use the div tag. Like I have done it myself also. That is the reason I have taken this example. But here you can see, even if I have used a div tag, I have used the role attribute. I told this is an alert, which basically definitely appears when the form is submitted and maybe stays for 1 2 seconds. And then there is also a div which is click me, that means it is a button, so I have mentioned the role as button. Now a quick tip, uh, avoid using ARIA and use semantic HTML more. Like if in some case you are not using semantic HTML, then you can use ARIA, but those are definitely subjective. And I would recommend, like everybody recommends, using semantic HTML more than ARIA. Okay, so now coming to the question that I asked in the beginning of this session, have you ever tried using a website with only a keyboard? So definitely I know the answer will be no. But let us understand why keyboard navigation is important. Okay, so there are some features like where you can use a complete website using your enter and tab. But To make this, while you're coding, you should use the tab index property or the tab index attribute basically of your HTML. So here is the tab index. So here you can see I have one anchor tag which has a hyperlink. Currently I have given that as hash because it is not redirecting to somewhere else. But if you need to redirect it and you don't have those, like you don't have your mouse, so how you're gonna click it? You're gonna click it using the tab index field. Okay, great. I think that's clear. Now coming to the WCAG guidelines for color and text contrast. Like this is something people usually don't follow. Like I have seen most of the website don't follow this convention. But yeah, mostly big tech companies usually follow this, and in countries where the as I've said, the legal compliance is there, they follow it. But in most of the places they don't. And this is something theoretical again, like this are the guidelines, so it will be definitely theoretical. I would recommend you all to, after this session, go and search the WCAG guidelines. Those are easily available in the web. You can just search and see it, and you will understand more clearly what I am telling to say. Okay, so the normal text ratio is given here as 4.5 is to 1. Then the large text is 3 is to 1. And for graphics and UI components, the minimum ratio is 3 is to 1. Okay, so to understand this more clearly, you need to go through the guidelines on your own. You need to understand. If you don't understand, I am definitely available on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me. But this is something that you need to explore on your own. You need to apply this on your projects, on your web applications. Then only it will be helpful. Okay, so moving on, here is a example of the color contrast thing that I have said. The left side basically is the bad examples and the right side is the good examples. As you can see, the left side text is absolutely not readable. I think the green one, that is the red on green, is bad. This is somewhat visible, but people with color blindness might not see it, because people with color blindness usually have difficulty in seeing red and green and differentiating in red and green. So never ever use red and green together. Like, see, these are the things you need to understand when you are making your website, because the red and green is fine for me because I am not a colorblind person. But if somebody has a disability, as a developer, it's your duty to make your website in such a way that each and everybody is able to access your website without any difficulty. Okay, so moving on. So now you have made your website. So now how to test that whether they are working fine or not, right? So here are some manual testing ways that you can manually navigate to your website through your keyboard. Like that is a great way, I would say. And then for the screen readers, you can use the NVDA and the voiceover. They are quite popular. And you can also simulate like disabilities with using color blindness tools. Like they are quite like easily available in the web. You can easily use those and understand. Now these are the manual testing. And to use the automated tools, the best tool I would say the Lighthouse, which is Chrome dev tools. If you people have, definitely you people have seen Lighthouse. If not, not a problem. Just inspect your any page and go to the console section. Basically there you would see Lighthouse is there. Lighthouse is basically used to I would say score your web's accessibility, your website's performance, and a lot. Lighthouse is a great tool. Like, to be very honest, Lighthouse needs a separate session, not in this session, but maybe in some other session I will be talking about Lighthouse. Like, I have been using Lighthouse for quite some time now, but and it's very good. Like, it's very useful. And there is also another thing called the Axe browser extension. You can definitely use that also, but my high recommendation will always be Lighthouse. Okay, now let's understand the benefits of accessibility. Like, what are the benefits? So we have already talked about this, but let's recap a bit as we have already came to the end of this session. So accessibility basically improves the ACO, as I have told you that the search engine optimization. Now, how it actually improves the SEO? For example, see, when a web crawler goes through your website, it basically picks up the HTML tags. Okay, so when it sees that you have written H1 or you have written a P tag, it understands what you want to depict. For example, the H1 will be the heading that it knows. So it helps in ranking your website more. It helps in, I would say, for example, when we search one website, along with the website main link, there are some related links also coming there. You people must have seen. So the SEO helps, the basically the semantic tags help in achieving that too. Now coming to the second point, which is the enhanced user experience. So definitely, by using or making your web accessible, you're definitely increasing the user experience. Maybe a normal user isn't affected by that, but but definitely somebody with some sort of disability is definitely, I would say, his or her experience is definitely enhanced by your code. Okay. And most important, broader audience reach. If you make your website in such a way that it is accessible for all, people are going to access your website, right? So you will be reaching a broader audience, which everybody wants. And now, before ending my session, I would like to say a famous quote, that is, accessibility is not a feature, it's a mindset. And as a web developer, as maybe a front end developer, or as maybe a developer itself, you should have that mindset of making a website accessible for all. Okay, so, and with this, do you guys have any questions right now?